Hello, my friend. Welcome to this special presentation on One Belief Away. This is an introduction to how your mind works, how your conscious and unconscious mind are influencing your reality, how you experience situations on a day-to-day basis. And this program is going to really help you understand how powerful your beliefs are, what you really believe about yourself, others, and the world around you, and how it influences you on a daily basis, and how most of these beliefs that you have were formed when you were a kid, which means that the experiences that we had in childhood are still influencing us when we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. So this is going to be a very powerful introduction to how your mind works and how to start to use the power of your mind to create your life by design. It's based on the book that I've written recently called One Belief Away. So if you have read that book and now you are in one of my programs where we're taking your training to the next level, welcome. If you haven't read that book yet, you might want to go to Amazon.com and get yourself a copy. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with the story. There was this farmer, and he decided that he needed to fill in one of these old water wells that had dried up. And so he got his trucks and he got his crew and he got a load of dirt together, and they were moving towards this well. And as they got close to the well, they heard this sound, this heeing and hawing. It sounded like a cry for help coming from an animal. He looked down into the deep well and he realized that one of his old favorite donkeys had somehow fallen in that well and had a hard time getting out. For whatever reason, the farmer was unable to remove the donkey from this well, and it was heartbreaking. And the farmer realized that the donkey had a really old life and was probably not going to be able to get out of that well. So they decided to just go ahead and cover him up. I know, terrible, cruel part of the story, but there's a good lesson that comes from it. So he takes, he tells his crew, okay, go ahead and fill up the well. And so the farm hands grab the shovels and they start throwing dirt into the well and onto the donkey. And at first the donkey was confused. And then all of a sudden the donkey realized what was happening and got very alarmed and was crying out. And they just kept throwing shovels of dirt. And then pretty soon there was silence coming from the donkey. And the farmer thought that was kind of strange. They hadn't put that much dirt in yet. And so he looked into the well, and while people were still throwing dirt in, the donkey was having the dirt land on him, and then he'd shake the dirt off, and then it would fall on the ground, and then the donkey would step up on that shovel of dirt. And then they would throw more dirt in, and the donkey would shake it off and then stand on the next level of dirt. And the more dirt they added, the higher the donkey was actually raising itself on that dirt, until eventually they threw in the last few shovels of dirt, and so that it was filled up high enough for that donkey to step on the last pile of dirt and then literally just step outside of the well and free himself. He got out into the field, shook off the remaining tension and adrenaline that he was experiencing, and then walked off into the sunset. So the moral of the story is that life is going to be cruel sometimes. It's going to be unfair many times. And it's going to feel like you are innocent and life is just throwing you shovels of dirt, right? Or other things onto you. And it sometimes can feel like we're literally just being buried alive. It's not what happens, it's how we deal with it. And a lot of times we get scared, we get angry, we feel resentful, we feel like this is unfair. Sometimes we get feeling so angry or feeling so sorry for ourselves that it keeps us stuck. And often people will feel like they literally are just buried alive. However, those are others of us who are more self-aware, who have realized that there are ways out of it and that you just have to be patient and creative. And when life throws that on you, you've got to shake it off and then make your move. Figure out what you can do, what you can control, who you can lean on, what resources are available, because there are always resources available. It is never as bleak as it seems. There is always an opportunity hidden, even in the darkest of times. Even when it seems like it's hopeless, there is always something that we can do. Even if we can't control what's happening to us physically, we can control our mindset and what we tell ourselves about it and how we decide to show up. It's not what shows up, it's how you show up. It's not what happens, it's what you say it means or what you are going to do with it. People have been through all kinds of tragedies, and they've used those tragedies to create triumphs, to make the world a better place, to heal other people, to heal themselves. And I've just seen so many amazing things. So you got to do what the donkey does. When they throw the dirt on you, you got to shake it off, step up, and then, move forward until you reach your outcome or your desired destination. That's the goal of this training, to give you the tools, the awareness, the insight, and the strategies so that you can do this. Because again, it doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up. And that's where your power is. Your power is in your ability to show up in a way that makes you feel secure, safe, resourceful, confident, empowered, motivated, focused, and hopeful. So I want to start real quick by telling you why I've learned all this stuff and why I've spent the last 32 years studying human behavior, trying to figure out how to get over my own anxiety, worry, and fear. When I was a kid, I was 12 years old, and my dad was involved in an explosion at a steel mill. He was burned severely. We thought he was going to die. He didn't. He made it. He had his scars on the outside, but we all had our scars on the inside, going through a traumatic experience like that. And as a result, a belief formed in my 12-year-old mind that I'm not safe. Something bad could happen at any time. The rug can be yanked out from underneath you. You could lose everything. And so because I had this belief form in my unconscious mind, I wasn't sitting there thinking this. My brain just did the thinking for me. My unconscious mind decided that I'm not safe. And so if I'm not safe, I won't be loved. And then if I'm not loved, what do I do? How do I survive? And it started developing these defense mechanisms, these coping strategies that ended up helping, trying to help me to deal with the trauma that I had experienced. And we all have traumas, big T and little t traumas. And our traumas come from people being mean to us, friends saying horrible things to us, being embarrassed by teachers or parents or friends or pastors or preachers or whoever it may be. We have all kinds of experiences that we go through that can be wounding and that can hurt our feelings. And then we have the big T traumas, death, sexual abuse, physical abuse, being kidnapped. All kinds of terrible things that people go through. People have been through wars and all kinds of just really horrible experiences. And our mind develops beliefs. What does this mean? So I've had people who came to me who were adopted, who formed a belief that my parents didn't love me enough, so I must not be lovable. So, I'm not worthy of anything. I'm not good enough for anybody or anyone. And when you have a belief in your unconscious mind that you don't even know you have, that makes you think that, you're not lovable, you will act in a way that makes that seem true. Right? Our beliefs cause us to show up in a way that reinforces the beliefs that we have in our mind. So if we believe that we're not worthy or we're not safe or we're not good enough or the world is a cruel place or you can't trust people or people will always let you down, as long as you keep supporting beliefs like that, it is going to sabotage you. You will sabotage you, and you won't even know that you're the one doing it. That's the problem with our blind spots, right? Our self-limiting beliefs being in our unconscious mind. We don't know they're there. There's an old saying that says you can't see the label when you're in the bottle. It's hard to be objective with yourself. And so a lot of times we're going through life playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And if you play not to lose, you end up losing, even if on the outside it looks like you are successful and you have the great family or whatever it may be. But on the it looks like we're killing it on the inside, but we feel like we're being killed, or we're killing it on the outside, but it makes us feel like we're being killed on the inside. Right. So no matter what you might be struggling with, some people are really successful with their business, but their health is terrible. They just can't lose the weight. Or maybe they're really healthy, but they are always struggling financially. Or maybe they have their health and their money in order, but they've been married 3 times, and they can't get their relationships in check. Or maybe you have all of that, but you're still struggling to trust people or feel fulfilled or feel content, because you haven't let go or really resolved those issues from the past, even if maybe you think you have, or you've done therapy or medication, but it still really hasn't changed how you feel about the past. All of that is being influenced by your beliefs. And when we upgrade your beliefs, it upgrades your life. So there's two parts of your mind. Let's just make it simple and say there's your conscious and your unconscious. Now, some people will say subconscious mind. We're going to keep it simple here, and we're just going to pretend that that's your unconscious mind. So your conscious mind is the part of you that looks, listens, and learns. It's the part of you that takes information in through your five senses, and it decides this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. It's the part of you that controls your willpower. It's the part of you that is your analytical mind that's always trying to make sense out of things. And that's the part of you that you're using to take this training in right now. So your conscious mind tries to use willpower to control behaviors, habits, and beliefs, but loses out to your subconscious mind or your unconscious mind because it is the more powerful part of you. So your unconscious mind is really like the boss. You know, it's the part that drives 80% of what you do. So it has two functions. One, it keeps your body running. I mean, you don't have to think about your heart beating, breathing, your blood circulating. Your unconscious mind runs all of that. The second thing it also tries to keep you safe, right? It stores all your beliefs, your habits, your life experiences, your memories, your values, your needs, your human needs, all the stuff that are like our filters for life. It's like your unconscious mind has this big filter, right? And it's made up of all of your life experiences and everything that you have experienced since birth. And so when information comes in, it's kind of neutral information until it comes into your mind and your mind starts making meaning out of it. So since it's not conscious and incapable of reasoning, your unconscious mind is non-judgmental. And you think of it like a hard drive. It's not the reasoning part of you. It just stores programs and runs programs. It's not thinking good or bad, right or wrong. It's just running a program. So you might have type 2 diabetes and you're still eating a whole bunch of donuts and drinking diet soda. And your unconscious mind is keeping that in play, even though consciously and logically, we realize that's horrible for you. It would be destroying your health. But unconsciously, it thinks that is making you feel happier. That's making you feel more comforted. That's that's your substitute for feeling lonely or not having a partner that you're connected with, or, not feeling good about yourself. And so it will cause you to do things that are bad for you if it has been programmed to believe that it makes you feel better. And that's all our bad habits are. Our bad habits are just these coping mechanisms that we have learned to develop, or we've been taught by watching others with their bad habits. And bad habits are just coping mechanisms. They are designed to help take pressure off, to make you feel more comforted, to meet your needs for comfort or certainty or love or connection. And that's why people will feel like they're fighting their own brain sometimes when they're trying to achieve a goal, and then they can't get themselves to do it. If you've ever said, I know what to do, I just can't get myself to follow through, it's because your unconscious mind has been programmed to keep you doing the stuff that's holding you back. And that's where self-sabotage comes in. A lot of times we're not doing it on purpose. We're not doing it intentionally. In fact, we're telling ourselves and everybody else that this is not what we want. And yet your mind is still conditioned or programmed to respond in that way. So it's going to, and it will win because it's the more powerful part of you. That's why when we do our work together, we go into your unconscious mind and we start to create the healing and the upgrades at that level instead of trying to use positive thinking. Positive thinking often is like trying to cut the top off a weed. If you don't get to the root and pull it out there, it just keeps growing back. So that's why we want to use your conscious and your unconscious mind, get both parts of your mind wanting the same thing instead of fighting each other, wanting the same thing, headed in the same direction. And when that happens, bam, that's when the breakthroughs occur. So if you ever heard that iceberg analogy where you see the top of the iceberg, but really that's only the top 10%, 90% of that iceberg is actually underwater underneath the surface. And so when it comes to upgrading how we behave, how we think, how we feel, because a lot of times people try to use affirmations, which is just saying nice, positive, loving, supportive, encouraging things to yourself. And then another part of you says, yeah, right, I don't believe that. That's full of crap. That's not what my life has been like. Well, that thinking is coming from your unconscious mind. And if we don't change that part of it, then all the positive affirmations in the world won't work. So you think of an analogy like this. Your unconscious mind is an elephant, yeah, or our subconscious mind, it's an elephant, right? And our conscious mind is the little guy sitting on top of the elephant, trying to get that elephant to go where he wants it to go. Now, when things are calm and cool, sometimes we can use willpower to be able to get ourselves to move in a certain direction. But if we are under stress, if we are under pressure, if we are scared, if we're suddenly afraid that something bad is going to happen, if that elephant gets spooked, it is going to go wherever it thinks it needs to go. And that little human on top of it, hitting it with that little stick, trying to get it to go another way, ain't going to do anything. That elephant's going to go where it needs to go because it's 1,000-ton animal, or 1,000-pound animal, and it's going to go wherever it wants to go. And that's kind of how your unconscious mind is. We can use willpower, but if we are under pressure, then how we've been emotionally and mentally programmed is going to kick in, and that's going to be the boss. So we need to recognize that if you want to create change or transformation in your life, we've got to start working directly with your unconscious mind. So I want you to go ahead and look at this and see if you can read this. It's maybe strange that you can. Only some people can. Sorry, I have little windows in here, so I can't see some of the words because of how it's being recorded. So I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to research at Cambridge University. It doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing, huh? Yeah, and I always thought that spelling was important. So when you first look at this, you're like, what is this? But when you realize you can start to read it, it's because your mind, your unconscious mind, it doesn't take all the individual letters. It looks at it as a whole, right? And then it tries to make meaning out of it. Your mind is a meaning machine. It's always trying to make meaning out of random stuff. When we dream at night, our mind is taking random bits of experiences from yesterday, from the day before, from movies that you watched, from a conversation that you had, and then puts it into these weird, strange movies that we call dreams. It's just working things out at that unconscious level while we sleep. And so if we know that our mind is always making meaning out of things, and it's mostly doing it at an unconscious level, and it's making meaning out of situations based on the beliefs that we already have, then we want to know, what are the beliefs in my mind that are guiding my life? What kind of world do you live in? Do you think that life is a school and, you can always learn from anything? Do you think life is like a box of chocolates and, there's always something, a unique, fun adventure inside? Or do you think life's a bitch and then you die? What kind of belief do you have about the world you live in? That belief influences what you focus on. Are you focusing on what you can do to get what you want, or are you focusing on all the reasons why it won't work? That's going to influence your actions and what you do. So we want to make sure that we're recognizing that your mind is always making meaning out of everything. So if you look at this white candle holder, all right, and you're looking at it in a black background, you'll see the white candle holder. But I bet if you look at it for a little longer, you will also start to see two faces looking at each other, made out of the blackness around the white candle holder. All of a sudden you start to see the faces, right? Well, those faces aren't there. It really is just a white candle holder on a black background. However, our mind is always trying to figure out if there's a face. It makes human faces in our minds so that we can recognize one another, so that we can discover and really realize, is this person a friend or a foe? That's how our brain originally was developing. 500,000 years ago, when we were cave people, Neanderthals, our brain was trying to figure out, am I safe or not? And so, with this image, it's the same kind of illusion. If you ever look in a cloud and you see a face in a cloud, right? Or you're looking at a pattern and you see a face in a pattern. Our minds are always making faces, a lot in our mind, always putting things together often that aren't there. So a lot of times we're making assumptions about situations that are false. And it's interesting because we make up assumptions about what people are thinking about us, what happened, why people behave the way that they did. We make up all kinds of stories that are completely false, but we're just making them up because that's what the human mind does. And if we make up stories, we tend to believe our own stories. We tend to believe what we tell ourselves. So it's very important to realize, what are you walking around telling yourself all day long? And people will say, well, that's just how I feel about the situation. Well, feelings come from what you say to yourself. Your environment influences what you think. What you think influences how you feel. How you feel influences how you behave. Well, if you're feeling a certain way, it's because of what you're saying to yourself. Well, what if you're saying something to yourself that's false? Then you're going to be feeling something based on false evidence. So feelings can lie. Sometimes you can feel very strongly about something and still be wrong. And so we want to be open to new information instead of being judgmental, because otherwise you're holding yourself back and possibly others as well. So the mind is always interpreting life. I want you to imagine that you're standing by a lake and this eagle comes flying down over the water, grabs a fish right out of the water, and then takes off. Is that a positive or a negative experience? Well, the answer is neither. It's just an experience. The eagle's not thinking about it. The fish isn't thinking about it. The deers in the woods that might have seen it aren't thinking about it. But us animals with our prefrontal lobes, us Homo sapiens, us human beings, we are making meaning out of everything. So if you love nature and animals, and maybe you're a hunter, and you're like, oh, that was awesome. Or the American eagle, America, yeah. If you're an animal lover and a pacifist, you might go, oh my God, that poor fish, it's going to be eaten alive. It was taken from its fish family, right? But both of those are just made up constructs in our mind that we have made up when the situation itself is neutral. So remember, it's not what happens, but what you tell yourself, how you interpret the situation, that determines how you feel and how you're behaving every day. That's why I always say it doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up. And people act from their own level of awareness, which means that you're acting from the level of awareness that you have. Once we continue working together, your awareness is going to increase. You're going to notice things that you didn't notice before. And those opportunities that have been avoiding you, they're already here. You just have not been able to see them. It's like our beliefs. If we have negative or self-limiting beliefs about ourselves, it's like having filters or blinders on our eyes. And what you want is right here, but you won't be able to see it because this blinder says, I don't deserve it, or it doesn't exist, or I'm not lucky, or, I don't get any lucky breaks. And then you'll never see that opportunity that's right here going, hey, you. But when you expand your awareness, when you upgrade your beliefs and you go from I don't deserve it to I do deserve it, when you go from I'm not lucky to I am lucky, then all of a sudden you'll notice this, because now you're saying I'm lucky, and now your mind will say, okay, well, let me find lucky opportunities. If you say I'm not lucky, your mind will say, well, those don't exist, so ignore them. And that's what's happening at an unconscious level. So you can have what you want. You just got to expand your awareness and your belief system in order to experience it. So let's do one more little experiment here. I want you to read these sentences to yourself, and I want you to tell me how many F's, the letter F, how many F's are in this paragraph. Go. Okay, great. How many would you say there are? Some people will say there's 4. Okay, so if you only saw 3, you'd be like, what? Some people will say that there's 5. If you only saw 4, you're like, what? Some people will say there's 6 of them. And then occasionally people will say there's 7. What's the right answer? 7. Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the following experience of years. The reason that people miss some of the F's is because there are words in here that are sound like of, 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 1, 2, 3 ofs in there. When I say find the letter F, our brain starts reading for F. not of, right? So it sounds different. So a lot of times our mind will skip right over the of because it's not what we're looking for. That's the point. Often our mind will only allow us to see what we're looking for. It will only allow us to find evidence for what we believe is true. If we already think something's true, just watch it when people are arguing about politics. They're not seeking to understand the other person's point of view. They're trying to prove why they're right, period, and why the other person is wrong. And it happens on both sides. And that is why communication breaks down. People are no longer trying to learn. They're trying to prove what they already know. They're not trying to get more information. They're not trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle so that they can see the whole picture. They're just saying, I've got my piece and my piece is the truth. And that's why people end up having a whole lot of problems. You know, we used to have pieces of the puzzle that believed that people could turn into werewolves and you had to put them to death if that was the case. In the 1700s in France, there was 30,000 trials, court trials for people who are accused of being werewolves. And many of them were put to death, including women and children. Now, of course, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as werewolves except for in the movie. Yet people literally died from it because of the ignorance of those with one piece of the puzzle. Now, your mind works like a GPS. You ever use a GPS in your phone? You can literally say, hey, Siri, take me to the grocery store, right? And it'll start to give you directions for how to get to the grocery store. Your mind works the same way. Whatever you focus on, it starts to move you in that direction. Well, most people aren't focusing on what they want. They're focusing on what they don't want, what they don't have, what they don't like, what they're upset about, why they're still resentful. They're defending that chip on their shoulder. And all that does is keep us stuck. Remember, you get to keep whatever you argue for. So if you're arguing to be a victim, if you're arguing to feel depressed, if you're arguing for being broke and it's unfair, then you're going to continue to have that experience. But you're so much more than that experience. You're the experiencer, right? The experiences do not matter as much as the beliefs that come from them. We go through all kinds of good experiences and bad experiences, but we can get through every single one of them. If you have trouble believing that, get a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. It talks about Dr. Viktor Frankl, who was a Jewish psychiatrist who was in 3 different Nazi concentration camps, lost his family, lost his friends, lost his dignity, lost everything else. So he decided that the only thing that the Nazis couldn't break was his attitude. So he decided that he was going to find a reason to survive so that he could travel the world and tell people about what was happening so that it would never happen again, which became the slogan, never again, right, for many people in the Jewish community. And Dr. Frankl, I mean, it doesn't get worse than a Nazi concentration camp. I mean, that is the worst of the worst. And he survived it. And it was a harrowing story of the power of our mind and the power of our spirit and the power of our attitude, the power of forgiveness. You know, he started loving the guards, which were beating him. And, you know, I mean, it was just like, how is that possible? He shows you what is possible, and it really expands your awareness. So if you have been through horrible stuff, I'm really sorry that you've been through that. And we're not minimizing it. I understand it. Sometimes when I talk about it, I'm very kind of cool. It's just because I've been helping so many people with it for so long that I'm not focused on the wounded part anymore. I'm focused on where you're going and where you can get to, because I've watched it happen tens of thousands of times. And I know that that can happen for you as well. So we're going to come to terms with and admit and reckon that you might have been through some really horrific experiences, and I'm sorry that you have gone through that. It was unfair and it wasn't your fault, and it just sucks, right? Now that we start to get to that place, and if you need help with that, and maybe you call our office or talk to somebody about it more, you know, so we can help you with that. But if you realize, okay, I'm at that place now, I want to learn how do I move forward so that I'm not stuck to it for the rest of my life, so that I can make the next half of my life the best half of my life. Well, that's what we're doing right now, giving you this training up front so that then when you go through my revolutionary mind training experiences, those the awakening, the releasing, the clearing, some of the others that I've developed over the years, that's going to really help you to take your power back and help you to reclaim your innocence or your confidence or your well-being or worthiness or health or vitality or whatever it is, all of it, right? So I just want you to know for now that your mind will look for whatever you want. And if you're focusing on what you don't want and what you're unhappy about, that's where it's going to take you. Okay, so we've got to focus on what is the outcome that I do want? How do I want to feel? Get really clear. If you found a magic wand and you had to wish in detail, if you say, I wish for $1 million, and then all of a sudden all these male deer come flying into the room, 1 million of them, okay? A male deer is a buck, right? You got to be very clear about what you want. You know, I want a happier relationship. Well, have you clarified what that really means and what you're doing to, what kind of person you need to be to have that relationship, and you know, what you would do to contribute to having that relationship happen? Or are you stuck in the past saying, well, it didn't happen, or, you know, my partner doesn't support me, or I've already been married and they were a jerk, and so all people are jerks, or all men are jerks, all women are jerks, whatever it is. These beliefs and assumptions are prison bars. They keep us in mental prisons and they keep us stuck. So let me give you an example. If I get out my GPS and I say, GPS, I don't want to go to the grocery store, and I don't want to go to the movies, and I don't want to go to the post office. Well, it's going to do nothing, or it's going to take me to the movies, the post office, or the grocery store, because that's what I focused on. That's what I said. That's what came out of my mouth. So that's what it would go by. So if you're always saying what you don't want, your mind is going to take you to that. If you're driving down a road and you start swerving on ice and there's nothing to run into except a telephone pole 300 feet away, and you start saying, just don't hit the pole, just don't hit the pole, and you're staring at the pole, and you're like, just don't hit the pole. You hit the pole. Why? Because that's what you were focused on. So we've got to focus on the outcome that we want. Siri, take me to, you know, take me to my friend's house, right? And then, all right, now we told it what we wanted to do and what specific, take me to Billy's house. Now we know specifically who we are talking about and where we want to go. And then your mind can start to take you there. This is a little example of just proving that whatever you focus on becomes your reality. So what do those letters say? Just yell it out loud. Now, some of you might have said, it says nowhere. That's the most common response. It says nowhere. Okay. Others, if you move your attention over one level, it says now here. So think about it. If you have goals that you want to accomplish and you're telling yourself that they're nowhere to be found, then you won't be able to find a way to get to them. If you tell yourself, oh, they're now here, they're already here, I'm tuning into it, I'm connecting with it. I have a little quote that I have on the other side of my room. I look at it all the time, from Dr. Wayne Dyer. He says that abundance is not something we acquire, it's something that we tune into, right? It's a state of mind. So remember, what you want is nowhere or now here, depending on where you put your focus, where you put the space, right? So we want to keep reminding ourselves, no matter what we've been through, no matter what story we're telling ourselves, no matter what situation we're in right now, it doesn't matter what situation you're in. That is what has shown up. What matters is what you do with it, what your next move is, and how you show up. Instead of reacting, how you choose to respond. And how you choose to respond is going to be determined by the outcome that you want. So you can start to get clear on, what is the outcome that I want? What is the situation that I want to bring into my reality? And when we focus on that, it starts to help you realize how powerful you are, that you are a creator, that you have the ability to take any situation and handle it any way you want. Right? Because your attitude is your choice. What you say to yourself is up to you. Now, you might say something supportive or loving or encouraging to yourself and not believe it. Well, that's because you have limiting beliefs that we got to get rid of. Or you'll say, well, I have these beliefs because of these experiences. Well, maybe. I think that you might have had one experience that caused a belief. And because you had that belief caused a whole bunch of other experiences. Now, not always. But a lot of times we have a whole lot of evidence for why life is the way that it is, because we had that filter with that lens, and that's how we were filtering everything. Okay, so you might have had a series of bad things happen to you. A lot of times we do. You might have been bullied a lot or had a lot of mistreatment over, your whole childhood, perhaps. And maybe you didn't have any of that, but if you did, there's still all these beliefs that come up that tend to be the same beliefs. I'm not safe. People are evil. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. Our biggest fear out of all of them is that I'm not enough. And because I'm not enough, I won't be loved, or I'm not safe. And because of that fear of not being good enough, it develops all the other fears and all the other problems that we end up having with our health, with our money, with our relationships, with our confidence, with our peace of mind. So we want to really get a clear understanding of what's driving us at that unconscious level. Two people of equal talent and character set out to achieve a goal. One succeeds with the goal and one does not. Why? That's a question I've been asking for decades. And the answer is your beliefs. Okay. Beliefs unconsciously determine how you behave, and your conscious thoughts influence your happiness and your life satisfaction. Okay. So the person who succeeds believes that they're going to succeed. And they also, if they have a setback, they realize it's just a setup for a comeback, right? That they have the ability to learn from the situation and say, all right, there's no failure. There's just feedback. What's the feedback? Now I'm going to take this feedback. I'm going to adjust and I'm going to go for it again because I believe it's going to happen. And they just keep adjusting and going after it and correcting on the fly. Where the other person has a setback and takes it personal. They say, what's wrong with me, right? Why can't I do this? Why aren't I smart enough to figure this out? And they start to tear themselves apart, which leads to procrastination, a lack of focus, a lack of follow through, and then the self-sabotage prevents them from accomplishing the goal. In my experience, the only thing that really separates those from get what they want from those that don't is that the ones that don't get it, they stop, they quit. The ones that succeed, they keep going. You get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8 times. You get knocked down 700 times, you get up 701 times, right? You just keep getting back up. What will allow you to get back up? A strong belief system. And when you have a strong belief system, you will tell yourself more supportive, loving, empowering, encouraging things. You'll be talking to yourself in a more empowering, encouraging way, like your own best friend instead of your own worst critic. And you'll believe it because you have beliefs that back it up. You have beliefs that say, yes, I do believe this, or yes, this is what I have chosen to believe about myself. Because remember, beliefs are not facts. Beliefs are opinions. We used to have an opinion that the world was flat and you could sail right off of it, but that was false. We used to have an opinion that we would never get anybody to the moon, but we have. So if it's raining outside, that's a fact. If you say it's raining outside and my whole day is ruined, that's an opinion. And opinions can change. Some people will say, I love when it rains outside. It gives the water, my grass gets a drink, the flowers get watered, it makes the trees greener, so it doesn't matter what the weather's like. What matters is how you show up. What are you going to do with the weather, right? If it's not raining, now I'm going to go cut my grass. If it is raining, yay, I don't have to cut my grass. So we can start to develop our attitude. And that's what mental toughness and what having a positive attitude is really about. It's about building up our own level of confidence, self-discipline, and self-belief. All right. So your beliefs can either build faith or fear. So these are common beliefs that I have found over providing over 15,000 individual coaching sessions over a 20-year period. These are the beliefs that I heard the most. I'm good enough versus I'm not good enough. You believe I'm good enough, you'll be able to accomplish amazing things. If you believe I'm not good enough, you probably will struggle a lot. I can accomplish my goal versus I can't, it's impossible. I'm lucky versus I'm unlucky. It will work out versus it's never going to work out. If you don't think it's ever going to work out, would you really try? And if it got hard, would you keep going? Probably not. Why bother? It's not going to work out anyway. Watch people who diet, 99% failure rate for a reason. One, diets are, let me just clarify. One, diets are a very poor strategy for helping people to lose weight. And two, it's because the beliefs that we have about ourselves or about our ability to succeed are usually not very good. And then finally, I'm worthy of being happy and successful versus I'm unworthy of being happy and successful. Let's look at an example of this one. Kathleen came to see me about 3 or 4 years ago. And she said, I'm almost 300 pounds and I've tried every diet. Diets just don't work for me. So I'm wondering if you could help me to be a happy fat person. If I could maybe just be happy the way that I am, then that would be enough. And then she started to cry, which I knew that meant that that's not what she wanted. She wanted to be a happy, thinner person, but she just did not know how. So it turned out, instead of telling her to eat fruits and veggies, she already knew that. She knew what to do. She just couldn't get herself to do it. And the reason why is because she had a belief in her mind that I'm not worthy of love. And because she had this belief in her mind based on her dad was really cruel and cold and distant to her. And so she felt like he didn't love her. So dad doesn't love me. So I must not be lovable. So I don't love myself. And when we don't love ourselves, we don't take care of ourselves. And every time she started to take care of herself, she would find a way to sabotage it because she doesn't deserve to be loved or taken care of. And so we have to get rid of all these good results because we don't deserve that. Now, she wasn't doing any of that at a conscious level. She was working really hard, but our unconscious beliefs are the elephant. They're the more powerful part of us, and they run the show. And so that's what was getting her stuck all these years. And most people never address the beliefs. You might have programs that try to give you a more positive attitude, but they never go deep enough to change the unconscious beliefs. This is Kathleen 10 months later. We upgraded her beliefs and she lost 154 pounds. She's kept it off for the last 3 or 4 years. I was just talking to her the other day and she's happy as ever and still exercising regularly and loves her life. And because she now loves herself. She is worthy of herself. And she said, even after all the weight loss, though, the most powerful, impactful part of this program for me was loving me and having a new relationship with myself after all these years. Right. And so I'm telling you, I've watched this happen so many thousands of times that I know that it can happen for you too. We just got to go through the process. So I know this is a lot of information. If you need to pause this video at any time and digest it or journal or take some notes or grab some water, when I'm doing training with you, I try to give you a lot of information, in a fast amount of time. And it can feel like taking a sip off a fire hose. So sorry about that. I just want to give you as many tools as possible. And then you can go through these videos as much as you want so that you're getting new insights and new aha moments. As you go through this, and then you go through the rest of the experiences in the program that you have, go through this again, a couple months later, and you'll have a whole new experience with it, a whole new level of understanding, a whole new level of, oh, wow, I didn't pick that up the first time. And it's because you're growing, your emotional intelligence is increasing, your level of self-awareness is rising. And so you literally are becoming you 2.0. And when you take the world in from that perspective, your filter is empowered. And so you'll be able to notice things that you didn't notice the first couple of times through. So here's a 5-step belief upgrade. And this is what you can do to kind of do this with your conscious mind. This exercise will actually help you a lot more after we go through the awakening, the releasing, and the clearing experiences. They're in the One Belief Away book or the Awakening course, right? So, but I'm going to take you through this anyway so that you have some more tools that you can use. Okay, so step 1 of this 5-step process is, what's my biggest worry or problem? And then just write it down. What's the biggest worry or problem that I have? And then what's the feeling that goes with it? What do you feel? Do you feel tight? Do you feel pressured? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel scared? Do you feel angry? Do you feel pissed? What do you feel inside? Notice where you feel it. Is it in your chest, in your gut, in your head, in your throat? What's my biggest worry or problem? And then what does the feeling that comes up? And then with that feeling, we're going to focus on the feeling because feelings come from what we think. So what would you have to believe in order to feel this way? What would I have to believe? If I'm feeling scared, what would I have to believe? Right? Maybe that I'm not safe, right? That you'll notice it comes back to the same ones. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not safe. You can't trust people. These are the core human fears that we have. The root of all insecurity in this world is that belief that I'm not enough. And that's where all the dysfunctional communication comes from. That's where all our self-pity and all our greed, and desire for power and all the other stuff that ends up sabotaging humanity and our happiness and quality of life are these self-limiting beliefs. So what would I have to believe in order to feel that way? And then start writing stuff down. I have to believe that it's not going to work out, and I'm not going to know how to work it out, and people are going to let me down, or I'm going to let myself down, or I'm going to let everybody else down, and then I'm going to lose everything, and I'm going to end up, all alone, naked in a ball in the corner, and no one will care. I mean, just really junking it all the way down. And what would I have to believe to think I'm going to end up that way? That I'm not good enough for anybody to love me. Boom. That's the core belief. If you take the layers off the onion, like Shrek always says in the Shrek movie, if I'm an onion, you got to take the layers off, and there's another layer, and you take that layer, and there's another layer. Well, the core of it is usually I'm not enough. Once you recognize what that belief is, then you can ask yourself, what do I want to believe instead? What would I rather believe instead? What would be an opinion that would serve me? Because remember, beliefs are opinions, right? So what is an opinion that would serve me? If I could believe anything I wanted, what would I want to believe? Now, sometimes it's hard to come up with that on our own. So think, if you have a child that you really love, or a friend that you really care about, or even an animal, that maybe you love your dog or your cat, right? Because people have hurt you so much, so you just have animals around you. And that dog, cat, child, or best friend was saying that I'm not good enough. What would you say to help that creature or human feel better? What would you say to them? No way, you're amazing, and I love you, and you are enough, you're more than enough, you're a gift to this world. Start thinking about what you would say to them and apply it to yourself, because I bet you'll come up with all kinds of nice things you could say to others, but it's time to turn it inward. It's time to turn that inward. And so you start thinking, what would I rather believe? I am enough. I am worthy. I am good. I am lovable. Even if you don't believe it right now, just think, what would I want to believe? And then state it as though it's already true. It's already present tense. I am. Not I'm going to be, not I will be, not I'd like to be, but I am. And then you write that down. Just writing down your I am statements. That's powerful stuff. And then number 4, if this belief were true, okay, how would I rise up to the occasion, and what's one bold action that I would take? So let's just say that you've been telling yourself that, I'm not good enough, or it won't work out. And all of a sudden you're telling yourself, I am good enough and it will work out. What bold move would you make? Well, you know what? I would sign up for that class, or I would call that friend and have that conversation, or I would put my shoes on and go right for a walk right now without even thinking anything else. I'm just going to grab my shoes and go. I might not even grab my shoes. I might just go, right? And go take that walk, because once you start getting things moving into action, it will keep moving in action, right? People start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. And that's what messes them up. You want to get going and keep going. So you think about what's a bold move that you would make, something that would really be beneficial for you. And then number 5, take action on it. Take that first step. Don't leave the side of a goal without taking some kind of action that will move you towards it. So take some kind of action right here, right now. If it's 11 o'clock at night and you're watching this and you decided that I'm going to start doing my push-ups, pause the video and do one push-up right now. Do one push-up right now, just one push-up right now, because now you said I did it. And if your mind says, well, who cares? Just one, that's not going to change anything. Cancel clear. Cancel clear. We're focusing on number 3, okay? That it is working. I just made a deposit. That push-up is a seed I put in the ground. These are prosperity seeds you put in the ground so that they grow in your life. Seeds won't grow in your pocket. They won't grow in your head. You got to get them out and put them in the ground. When you take action, you're planting your prosperity seeds. So this is a 5-step action step that you can take that will help you to start getting clear on what you want, because that's going to be the second step. After we go through the experiences, after you go through the awakening, the clearing, the releasing, when you go through those life-altering, life-empowering experiences, then we got to be clear on, okay, I'm clear and I'm excited and I love me. Now, where do I want to go and what's the outcome that I want? This 5-step exercise can help you do it. Now, of course, we do have the prosperity mindset breakthrough experience as well that will take you deeper through it. It's a 7-day experience. It's very powerful. If you haven't gone through that experience, you may want to do that next, or maybe you've done that and now you're here for this part of it. So all these tools are in the same path. You know, we just got to do one path at a time. So wherever you entered the path is fine. You just want to make sure that we're doing all the steps in the path. It doesn't really matter what order you do them in, as long as you do them. And that will help so much, because there's going to be objections. There's going to be thoughts that you have that might, you know, be confusing. And because these are pre-recorded programs and you're not in a live experience yet, you know, I can't just help you reframe it right away. So I'm trying to give you as many resources as possible until you join one of our live experiences, because then I can help you reframe it right then and there and keep you moving forward, because you want that momentum. All right, let's go through an example of that 5-step exercise. Okay, so let's say I've got way too many bills. The pandemic hit, or, you know, I'm on retirement and they're cutting part of my money that I'm getting. I got way too many bills. What am I going to do? All right, well, that's number one. That's my biggest worry or problem. Number two, what would I have to believe? Oh, that's spelled wrong. What would I have to believe in order to feel this way? Well, it might be I won't be able to pay them all, you know, and then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. Right. And then I'm going to get kicked out of my house or my apartment, and then I'm not going to have any food, and then I'm going to be homeless. Right. We can really scare ourselves. Number three, what would you want to believe instead? That the bills are going to get paid and I'm going to have more money in the bank. I mean, that's what I would want ultimately. Most people don't think about what they want. They think about what's possible, what they think they could get, what they think they might be able to do to survive. And they focus on surviving instead of thriving. Well, your amazing mind is built to not only survive, but thrive. That's why we have the prefrontal lobes, the front part of our brain. It's allowing us to thrive now and not just get by. We want to get from the day, not just through the day. And so, you know, start saying, what do I want? You know, well, I'd like to have my bills paid and money in the bank. All right, well, if this belief were true, how would I rise up to the occasion, and what's one bold action I would take? Well, I would sign up for one of those debt consolidation programs and ask a couple of my friends to make a post on Facebook for my, you know, for my handyman services, right? So maybe you're looking for something different. I had a retired art teacher who didn't know where she was going to get extra money from. And I said, why don't you start painting and selling your paintings again? And she's like, no. And then she started to do it, and she made her first painting and she sold it. She couldn't believe it. And then she asked for what she wanted and she got it. She was in shock that happened. And she was able to generate extra income, more than she expected, doing what she loved, where before she thought that was an impossibility. You know, the word or the letters that make out impossible also make out I'm possible. Okay. So, and then number 5, let's go. You know, sign up for one of those debt consolidation programs, or, you know, start to put together, you know, the ad for the handyman services, or start getting creative on what we can do instead of focusing on what we can't do. People say, yeah, Tim, well, it's not that easy. Well, I say it is that easy. So what do you want to believe? Because your GPS is listening. So do you want to believe that it's not easy and it's going to be difficult and hard or impossible? Or do you want to believe that you can do it and that we're going to figure it out? And it takes just as amount of effort to make things happen as it does to sit there and stew in anxiety and fear. So what's it going to be? Not that easy, or it's that easy? Remember, Henry Ford once said, if you think you can or you can't, you're right. So choose wisely. Remember, calm, confident, resourceful people do this. This is what I've observed over the years, because I've watched people succeed and I've watched people fail. And this is the difference. Calm, confident, resourceful people do this. They slow down, they breathe through their nose, they loosen their shoulders. They focus on the desired outcome and imagine things going well. They make encouraging and hopeful comments to themselves, like, everything is going to work out fine. Just take it one step at a time. I got this. They lean on others for support rather than trying to do everything by themselves, which is the harder way of doing it. They consider taking care of themselves a necessity rather than a luxury. And they surround themselves with uplifting people, books, movies, music, hobbies. Almost everybody has a smartphone. You have access to this immediately on YouTube. Now, this is what happens when people are stressed, worried, unmotivated. They speed up, they go faster, they hold their breath, or they breathe through their mouth, they smoke cigarettes, they eat sugar, they drink alcohol, they store all this tension in their shoulders and in their body. They focus on things not working out, and they dwell on worst case scenarios happening, and they play them over and over. They make discouraging and critical comments to themselves like, I'm screwed and there's nothing I can do about it, and this is a nightmare, and you're in denial if you think it's any different. Okay, they are arguing for what they don't want, and guess what? They get to keep it. They push others away, believing they are weak if they can't fix it on their own. They don't take the time to care for themselves, and they turn sugar, nicotine, and alcohol. That's what they use to cope, and which increases tension and stress in the body. Human beings have this horrible habit of trying to avoid pain by doing things that cause more pain. Oh my God, I need to lose this weight. Now I'm stressed out. I'm going to eat a box of donuts. Okay. And then finally, we tend to hang out around others who commiserate in our misery. Misery loves company. But you know what? Joy loves company too. Just depends on who you're hanging out with. So you've got these slides so that you can go through this. I would print this slide out, carry it around, and say, this is what I do. I don't care how I feel in the moment. This is what I'm going to do. And then I'll feel better in the moment. And I'm going to avoid this. Okay. And then finally, your words have power. So pay attention to the words that you're using to describe your experience. It's really important to pay attention to those words you're using, because words have emotion. If I say love, it pushes a button. If I say hate, it pushes a button, right? And so if I say abuse, it pushes a button. And so we just want to be aware of the words that we're using. So instead of saying, you know what, I'm not as stressed as I used to be, your mind still hears the word stressed. So instead you would say, I'm feeling more calm. Now my brain hears calm. You know, I remember teaching verbal first aid programs to first responders and firemen and firewomen and hospital teams and emergency doctors and nurses. And it was interesting because they would show up on a scene and they would say things like, just don't panic, don't hyperventilate, just don't die on me. Well, your brain doesn't hear the word don't. It only hears what comes after it. So if you're saying don't panic, guess what your brain hears? Okay. So if you tell a kid, don't throw that toy, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to throw the toy. If you say, don't eat those cookies, all your brain hears is eat those cookies. And then it does. Instead, you would say, grab a glass of water, put the toy there or there. You decide, good job, right? Tell your brain what you want it to do. So instead of saying, don't die on me, you would say the healing has already begun. Now they're hearing healing and it's already begun, which creates hope. Right? Instead of I want to stop procrastinating, you start saying, I want to feel more motivated. Do you get it? You notice how we're starting to use different words? If you're using words like impossible, procrastinate, pain, problem, then your mind's going to operate on those words. If you start saying words like calm, motivated, pleasure, right? Then feeling fine, then your mind's going to operate on those words. So instead of saying this is impossible, say it's challenging, but we'll figure it out. Instead of no problem, say my pleasure. Instead of you won't feel any pain. If I say you're not going to feel any pain, what's the one word you hear? Pain, right? So instead you say you'll be feeling fine soon. Okay. And then instead of saying don't drink and drive, remember your brain only hears drink and drive. What you would say is stay sober when driving. So words have power. So I want you to begin to pay attention to the words that you're using. The word mindfulness just means that you're being more mindful of what you're saying to yourself, the words that you're using and how you're talking to you. So you want to practice. If you've been telling yourself, you know, this is a nightmare and I want to blow my brains out, whoa, that's going to add to your stress and anxiety. But if you say this has been challenging, but we're going to figure a way through this and it's going to make us stronger and more powerful than ever, then you're going to feel more empowered and resourceful. Now, some people are good at solving problems and other people are good at finding solutions, and that's okay. Either are fine as long as we are being, you know, realistic with the situation. We're being practical and still looking for a solution, and or we are going to solve problems, but we're not going to get stuck on the problem. We're going to focus on what's the solution to the problem. Either approach is fine. So if you want to go through and continue to learn how to use the power of your mind, I strongly recommend, if you haven't got my book, One Belief Away, how to upgrade your unconscious mind for prosperity and inner peace. It goes deep into how to retrain your mind. And then there was parts of it that I felt like Dr. Joe Vitale, who's written like 80 books and, one of the premier experts in the world on prosperity and the law of attraction. He was one of the stars in the movie The Secret. I asked him to help fill in some of the chapters because he's about 15 years ahead of me on this, and he did. And so it's an amazing masterpiece that we have put together that will help you. So I strongly recommend you check it out. So let's review, because I know this was a lot. Okay. 1, it's not the situations you experience, but how you interpret those situations and what you think those situations mean that ultimately determines your level of stress or your level of calm, happiness, and resourcefulness. So it's not what happens. It's what you tell yourself happens, or what you tell yourself you're going to do about it. Pay attention to the words that you're using to describe your experiences, because they push emotional buttons inside of you. And you want to be pushing the relaxation response, not the fight or flight response. You want to push the resiliency and the confidence and resourcefulness button, not the stress and anxiety button. If you ever feel stuck or overwhelmed, go through the belief upgrade exercise. Try to figure out what's the belief underneath it, and we'll start to shift it. Focus on desired outcomes and make time to recharge your batteries, because you are worth it. Recharging your battery, sitting still for 5 minutes, doing a relaxation program, a little self-hypnosis, going for a walk, playing with animals or your kids, sitting outside in the sunshine, listening to music, watching a YouTube inspirational video, smelling a scented candle, a cool, refreshing glass of water with some lemon in it. These are all ways of recharging your batteries. It's essential that you do that. And I just want you to know that you can go through this video over and over and over again, because there is a lot of information, but hopefully you've got a really good overview of how your mind works and how to use the power of your mind to create your life by design. As you have these tools in your toolbox and you have this greater awareness, then we can move into the next part of it, which is taking you through the reprogramming or reparenting. It doesn't matter what you call it, but these ways of changing the old beliefs for new beliefs, the old opinions for new opinions, the beliefs that you formed as a kid, and we want to upgrade them as an adult. I don't want a 7-year-old running my life. I want to be running my life, right? At 50, 51 years old, I want to be running my life, not the little kid that I once was. And so I'm sure you want it to be the same way. And so use these tools and strategies, and then we're going to go ahead and take you through those mind conditioning experiences, which are so amazing. I'm so excited to take you through that, and then continue along the path. I've laid this path out, so we've got more tools to continue to improve your clarity, to continue to help you to manifest prosperity and what you want into your life, and that will give you the tools and resources to help you to feel resilient, to build self-discipline, to keep you focused and motivated and inspired and resilient, so that you are making the rest of your life the best of your life. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next part of this training.